love lives here.
Estongo, Chukayadega. Buenos dias a todos. Good morning, everyone. Reverend Victoria Bomberry, Chahok Chopka. Mi nombre es Victoria Bomberry. I am Reverend Victoria Bomberry. And I'm so happy to be here with you this morning, and I thought I would practice 3 languages this morning. I don't speak Kawia or Tonga or Luseño or any of those languages. I am indigenous from the eastern part of this continent, and my family, I was born and raised in Oklahoma. And, you know, some of you know that I travel to South America frequently, and so Spanish is another language that I use. It's so good to be with you on this glorious, glorious day. You know, every day I wake up and I take a look out the window, and I am just stunned by what we live in here in California. We are so blessed, and every day is a glorious day. And it fits right in with this year's theme, living everyday wonder, right? Every day is a day of wonder. February's theme is inner life. Now, when I got the packet with all of this year's themes and the monthly themes, I read February as inner light. So, as I was doing work for February, I kept saying inner light. And then I realized, oh, it says inner life. But I thought, well, that really fits, doesn't it? Because our life is light. We are light beings. And the evidence of this is that, scientists have discovered that at the moment of conception, there is a light that is given off. Can you imagine? Isn't that incredible? So we have that inner light in us from the very moment that we begin our journey in this life. And I'm always just stunned by that. And we have this inner light to guide us throughout our entire journey here. Life and inner light are inextricably bound. The title of today's talk is Forgive to Live. Spring is approaching, and I was talking to my prayer partner this week, and, I was kind of feeling that stirring of, oh, yeah, I've got to clean this up, and look at that. It's time to kind of cut all those dead branches off. I mean, all of those things that come up when we start to feel that rise of spring in our bodies, right? We get those urges. Does anyone else feel that way? Yeah, okay. We know it. It's sort of part of how we're wired. That's one of the gifts that we've been given, is to know the changing of the seasons and what it brings. And I was talking to my prayer partner, and she was saying, something came up for me this week. And she said, I feel like I need to do more forgiveness around this. And I thought, well, this is the perfect time, because in spring, we are sweeping everything away. We're sweeping those cobwebs out. We're sweeping any kind of emotional thing that is dragging us down. We're sweeping that out of our lives. And forgiveness comes up in the spring as well, because we're ready to sweep that out of our life and come into our full blossoming. There's, for my people, there's a ceremony in the spring, and that's exactly what it's dedicated to. And there's a lot of cleansing, there's fasting, there's cleansing, there's getting rid of all that accumulation of whatever has come up. And a part of that also involves forgiveness. So this is not only, I know my people aren't the only people who do this. This is sort of what we do throughout humanity, is to practice forgiveness. Sometimes I think I've processed something and done all the forgiveness work necessary. And then here it comes again, right? And I used to get really frustrated and angry about that. Be like, oh, darn, here it is again. And I'd be just upset. And, at this point, after going around the sun several times, several decades, right? When it comes up now, it doesn't have the same charge to it. Right now it's like, oh, okay, there you are again, friend. Okay, I can see you. And what else do I need to learn from this experience? So it doesn't have that same hurt or anger or frustration to it. It is an opportunity to learn. And a lot of times, what I'm learning is that it's not about forgiving someone else that it's showing up. It's about forgiving something that I have held on to, and it's mine, right? I need to forgive that. And Jesus put it really simply: forgive others and you will be forgiven. And that's Luke 6:37. And a lot of people think that means that God's not going to forgive us if we don't forgive, right? But God doesn't condemn or hold grudges. That's just not in the nature of God. God doesn't even pay attention to any of that. That's beyond what God sees. God sees who we are. And we are the ones that do that. We hold ourselves in bondage. We're the ones who are holding ourselves back. So when we align with God, we can be as God is and forgive ourselves. Forgiveness is a sacred act that allows us to reconnect with Source and with ourselves. We can never be truly free unless we can forgive. Fred Luskin, who did research on forgiveness with the Stanford Forgiveness Projects, writes, in careful scientific studies, forgiveness training has been shown to reduce depression, increase hopefulness, decrease anger, improve spiritual connection, and increase emotional self-confidence. Isn't that amazing? That's what forgiveness can do. All of those things. And other research shows that people who are more forgiving report fewer health and mental problems and fewer physical symptoms of stress. And we can look at, we can kind of look around at how people have been stirred up over these past couple of years, right? There's been a lot of people who are stirred up and stressed, and there's a lot of holding on and a lot of unforgiveness. So it's no wonder that we see so much stress and we see so much tension and strife, right? Because we have not been actively engaged in this forgiveness. And it's for us to do. That's our work to do. In the book of Forgiveness by Desmond Tutu and his daughter Mifo Tutu, they outline a fourfold process of forgiving that includes telling the story, naming the hurt, granting forgiveness, and renewing or releasing the relationship. And I want to talk a little bit about this just so that we know what we're doing here. Now, telling the story doesn't mean running here and running there and just shouting out your grievances to anybody over and over and over again, right? That's not what it's about. We have to be clear about, what it is that's causing us hurt, but it's not something that we just kind of build on, right? And reinforce. And, that hurt has to be named. That hurt has to be named. And granting forgiveness is what we are engaged in. How do we forgive? On the fourfold path in this process, we need a witness. And I really like that word witness. And we use it often, we use it often in terms of our own spiritual growth, being our own witness. But we also need that outside witness that we tell our story to. It can be a trusted friend. It can be someone that we go to, a practitioner. It can be a therapist. It can be your minister. But it is that witness. And what does the witness do? The healing version of being seen and heard is someone must give you their unconditional attention without an agenda. It's not about fixing or making you feel better. It's about being with you no matter how you feel. And everyone has probably had the experience of trying to tell someone a story of our pain and hurt. And then the person that we're talking to will suddenly break in, right? And talk about something from their past. And basically, they're hijacking your story, right? They're not being a witness. Somehow they're taking over this sacred place where you're trying to tell and name the hurt that you're experiencing. So it's done, and I know that people who do that are doing it to try to make us feel better. But what we're talking about is being that witness for someone and finding that witness for yourself when you need it. We listen deeply as we open our hearts to hear the story that that person is telling. Just listening and taking it in. Just being there. That story is unique to that person. Even if we've had a similar experience, that story is absolutely unique to that person. Wholeness, witnessing is a powerful thing we can do for one another as we accompany those who are brave enough to be vulnerable with us. We are accompanying them. That's all we're doing. We're accompanying them. And what an honor and privilege that is. Let's just take a moment to go within and remember a time when someone has been a witness for you. Or if you haven't had that experience yet, imagine what it would be like to have someone be a witness for you. You might want to gently place your hand on your heart. And just take a moment to feel that witnessing presence. And you can open your eyes. How does it feel to be seen and heard in that moment? For me, I find myself grateful and moved when I have been truly heard and seen. I feel that. And I feel safe and able to let go and release the burden. And there's a real sense of freedom that that other person has given me, right? Gandhi said, I want freedom for the full expression of my personality. And that's a basic human yearning, to be ourselves. Being ourselves includes the open place where we can truly meet another without the mask that we may feel forced to wear on our daily lives. That persona, right? That persona that we take on, whatever it might be. And we can take that off and truly be ourselves. We know that belonging, we feel like we belong when we've been seen and heard. And we know that belonging and love go hand in hand. Once we cross the artificial barriers that we have erected, we can build intimate relationships, make friends, and forge the freedom that we desire for ourselves. This is not a solitary endeavor, although there is time for solitude. We are creating real relationships. And that's what we do in community, right? That's what we're always about. And I never want to leave the podium without talking about relationships and making kinships with one another. Because in relationship, we know God. And I believe that that is our pathway as human beings. That's how we get to know God. I want to tell a couple of stories about forgiveness. When I was much younger, I had an experience of betrayal. And, we can have things about forgiveness. All kinds of situations can happen. And mine was about betrayal. And it was damaging in every way imaginable to me personally, to my family, to my work, to everything. It was a horrible thing, and it really knocked me for a loop. And on my part, there was a certain amount of spiritual bypass in the way that I handled it. Because I was young, I was inexperienced. This was, I'd had little betrayals, in my life. I hadn't had something that was so momentous and damaging to me. And I did the spiritual bypass, I believe, because I wanted to take the high road. I wanted to do what was right. That was my intention. And it was a good intention, but I was only partially able to be who I was in that moment, right? And I accomplished, I believe, what I wanted to on the outer part of it, but the part that was lacking was the inner part. I wasn't able to accomplish what I needed in that situation for myself. So I took all of that stuff and I locked it away inside of me. And I avoided talking about it. Oh, first step in forgiveness, right? Name the hurt. Well, I just locked it away. And I never said a negative word about the situation or anyone involved. Never. Okay. So it can be admirable, right, to not speak negatively of others. That can be admirable. But there's a lot of things there. There's some nuance there too, right? And there's some basic things that we can follow on this path of forgiveness. So over the years, and I'm talking years, those things that I denied myself began to take their toll. I didn't recognize my rage and what I was doing to my body. And I know that some people may have had similar experiences. We don't recognize our rage, or we're told to tamp it down. And yet, if we do not recognize it, we cannot move through it. So what changed? Well, one of the things that I noticed was that I was very distrustful, even of my best friends. Isn't that horrible to think, oh, having trust issues with your very best friends? And I could intellectually know something, but it finally made its way from the intellect into some sort of action that I needed to take. And there was a third force involved. And what was that third force? It was the witness. I needed that witness. I needed to tell my story. I needed to name that hurt. And that witness reached out when I couldn't do that reaching. I accepted the witness and took the step toward forgiveness, including forgiving myself. I accepted the rage that I felt. It was there and I had to acknowledge it, right, before it could kind of dissipate. And under the rage was almost unbearable emotional pain that was manifesting in different parts of my body. And the body speaks when we don't. I realized that I had done the best that I could have done under the circumstances and released myself from the bondage of rage, regret, with the help of that witness. Many people I've talked to over the years have said that forgiveness was the hardest part of the process for them. Forgiving themselves, right? What I found is that I could not move forward forgiving others until I could forgive myself, right? I couldn't do that. And, for me, it didn't happen overnight. It happened over a period of many years. And when we get these spiritual tools, it's much easier to understand. Yes, there are some steps in this process. Yes, it's not just forgiving 70 times 7, right? It is a process. It is a process. It's not just taking what is dished out. It is also standing up for yourself and forgiving yourself when you don't, right? So there's a lot of things in forgiveness. And in our families, sometimes we have things that happen to us, right? And in our workplaces, in our extended families, in these networks, kinship networks, we have things that are very difficult to deal with, and we have to go through this process. So when I finally forgave, there was nothing I needed or wanted from the other person by that point. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need anything from them, right? It was no amends were necessary. Nothing. And I think, my fantasy was, oh yeah, I want this apology from them. I want this, I want that. I think that was kind of rolling around in the back of my head. But In true forgiveness, none of that ends up mattering. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Everything was just washed away. And I'm reminded of the Psalm of David. And I'm going to read the whole thing because I love it. Praise the Lord, my soul. And this is Psalm 103. All my inmost being, praise his holy name. Praise the Lord, my soul, and forget not all his benefits, who forgives all your sins and heals all your diseases, who redeems you from the pit and crowns you with love and compassion, who satisfies your desire with good things, so that your youth is renewed like the eagles. And that's exactly how I felt. I felt like my youth was renewed. I felt so light and easy when forgiveness was finally mine, right? And it was there all along when I finally claimed that forgiveness. And I know that, the crown that we wear is love and compassion. We talk about that here all the time. That's our crown. That's our royalty, love and forgiveness. That's who we are. So that's our inner light, and our inner life is love and forgiveness. Now, I could tell a lot of stories of forgiveness, and I could keep us here all morning and to the afternoon. But I just want you to know that forgiveness is a process, and it is something that we can do. Maybe it doesn't come easily to us, but it will come as long as we do the steps, do the work, take one step at a time toward forgiveness. And as we gain facility, and as the Buddhists would say, as we become more skillful, right? Forgiveness does come easily. We can see someone, oh, I understand that person. I understand where they're coming from. And we can easily allow it to go, to leave, to be released. That doesn't mean we ignore it, right? But we don't hold on to it. We can see, and we can love, and we can have that compassion, true compassion. Ernest Holmes says something that I think is really, really powerful. Humanity's ignorance of their real nature binds them until they come to see things as they really are, not as they appear to be. So when we look at somebody with new eyes, with love and compassion, we see who they really are. When we look at ourselves with those new eyes of love and compassion, we see who we really are. And we are all free. So this week, as we go through our house cleaning, our spring cleaning, our forgiveness work, let's remember to forgive, to live, to honor all life. And just as the poet Mary Oliver says, I bow to each of you. And so it is. So let's turn within. And I'm so grateful to recognize God in this very moment, knowing that God is all there is. And I'm choosing to call God the master of breath today, knowing that God is love and compassion. That as we align ourselves with God, as we become one with God, we know that we are truly, truly blessed with all the qualities of God. We have them at our fingertips at all times. Any and every situation that we find ourselves in is guided and guarded by the Most High. That our words are words of healing, that our eyes are eyes that see the ultimate reality, see the beauty and the perfection in every part of creation. And I'm so grateful for all of this. I'm grateful that we have the capacity to forgive one another, to love one another, to release ourselves and others from any and all damaging words, actions, and deeds. And I know that we receive peace in every moment that we are willing to forgive, that we are willing to live life as we are intended to live it, free and happy and in joy. And I am grateful for all of this, and I allow it to be. I release my word into the action of the law, knowing that it is done, and so it is.
Love